The chamber was massive beyond human understanding. It stretched upward for what seemed like miles, with walls that shifted between solid matter and pure light. Thousands of beings filled the space, creatures from every corner of the known galaxy. Some floated in containment fields. Others stood on platforms adjusted to their specific gravity needs. A few existed only as energy patterns, their thoughts broadcast through translation devices. Han Day stood at the entrance, trying not to show his terror. He was 32 years old, a mid-level diplomat who had been sent to this meeting because everyone more important had been busy. Earth had made contact with the Galactic Council only 3 years ago. Humanity was still the newcomers, the primitives, the species that everyone else looked down upon. The Galactic Council had ruled for 10,000 years. That was longer than human civilization had even existed. These beings had conquered death, traveled faster than light, and built structures that could survive the death of stars. And they thought humans were amusing pets at Bastat today was the grand succession ceremony. The throne of unity needed a new occupant. The throne was ancient, older than any of the current council races. It chose its own ruler, accepting only those it deemed worthy. For the past century, it had rejected every candidate presented to it. 97 beings had tried to claim it. 97 had been found wanting. They watched as another candidate approached the throne. This one was from the Drothan Empire, a being that looked like liquid metal poured into a vaguely humanoid shape. It radiated power and confidence. Its military record filled entire databases. It had conquered 12 systems single-handedly. The Drothan reached for the throne's armrest. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystalline structure flashed red. The Drothan was thrown backward with such force that it crashed through 3 rows of seating. Medical teams rushed forward. Candidate 97, rejected, announced the ceremony's overseer, a floating sphere of condensed thought energy. The chamber filled with disappointed murmurs. Lord Kravik of the Vexel delegation rose from his seat. The Vexel looked like massive insects, crossed with crystalline structures, towering 12 feet tall, with voices that sounded like breaking glass. Kravik was old, powerful, and deeply amused by humanity's presence in the council. "This is ridiculous," Kravik announced, his voice amplified across the chamber. "The throne has rejected our finest leaders, our greatest warriors, our most brilliant minds. Perhaps it is broken. Perhaps it has lost all meaning." "The throne cannot be broken," the overseer replied. "It is the foundation of galactic law. Without it, the council has no authority." "Then perhaps we need a new foundation," Kravik said. Other voices rose in agreement. The chamber was growing chaotic. Some delegations were calling for the throne to be destroyed. Others insisted that more candidates must be found. Kravik's multifaceted eyes suddenly fixed on Day. A smile spread across what passed for the Vexel's face, showing far too many teeth. "I have a proposal," Kravik said, his voice dripping with mockery. "A test. If the throne truly seeks worthiness rather than power, let us present it with the most humble candidate available." He gestured toward Day. "Let the human try." The chamber erupted in laughter. It was not kind laughter. It was the sound of thousands of beings finding the same joke hilarious. A human on the throne of unity? A species that had barely left its own solar system? It was absurd. It was insulting to everyone who had tried before. They felt his face burn with shame. He understood exactly what this was. This was mockery disguised as a test. This was powerful beings using him as entertainment. But he also understood that he could not refuse. To refuse would be to insult the entire council. Earth was too new, too weak, too vulnerable to risk that. The human delegation tried to object, but Day raised his hand to stop them. He walked forward, his steps steady despite the fear coursing through him. The laughter continued as he crossed the vast floor. Some beings were actually recording this moment, wanting to preserve the joke for posterity. The throne sat on a raised platform at the chamber's center. Up close, it was even more impressive. It appeared to be made of crystal, but the material shifted and changed as Day watched. Sometimes it looked solid. Sometimes it seemed to be made of captured starlight. Patterns moved through it, like thoughts traveling through a brain. Day climbed the steps slowly. He had no expectations of success. He knew he was not worthy of this position. He was nobody special. He had not conquered worlds or led civilizations. He had spent most of his career filing reports and attending minor negotiations. He was here only because everyone better had been unavailable. He reached the throne and stood before it. The laughter in the chamber was starting to die down. Beings were eager to see the final moment of the joke when the throne rejected him, as it had rejected all the others. They reached out and touched the armrest. The universe exploded. Light filled everything. Not just the chamber, but Day's mind, his soul, every particle of his being. He felt the throne respond to his touch, not with rejection, but with something that felt almost like joy. Like recognition. Like a key finding the lock it was made for. Information flooded into him. 10,000 years of history. The rise and fall of civilizations. The laws that governed 1 billion worlds. The weight of impossible decisions. The loneliness of absolute authority. It all poured into his human mind faster than thought itself. Day screamed. He could not help it. His brain was not designed to hold this much information. But the throne was already adapting, restructuring his neural pathways, expanding his consciousness in ways that should have been impossible. It hurt more than anything he had ever experienced. The light was so bright that beings across the chamber had to shield their eyes, or switch to different visual spectrums. When it finally faded, Day was sitting on the throne, unconscious, his body rigid. But the throne itself had changed. Its crystalline structure now pulsed with a steady rhythm that matched Day's heartbeat. Patterns of light moved through it in waves that corresponded to his brain activity. The chamber was absolutely silent. Chief Scholar Yura of the Quellan Hive moved forward, her instruments already scanning. The Quellan looked like upright mantises made of living metal, and Yura had studied the throne for 300 years. She examined the readings once, then twice, then a third time. "This is impossible," she whispered, but her voice carried in the silence. "The throne has not just accepted him. It has bonded with him. Completely. Absolutely. I have never seen integration this deep, this fast, this total." Lord Kravik pushed forward, his earlier amusement gone. "Remove him. This is a malfunction. The throne must be malfunctioning. Do not touch him," Yura warned. But Kravik was already ordering his guards forward. 3 Vexil warriors approached the throne, reaching for Day's unconscious form. The throne's defensive systems activated instantly. Energy weapons emerged from the crystalline structure, targeting the guards with lethal precision. Warning alarms shrieked. The guards backed away quickly, but not before one of them got too close. A beam of concentrated energy burned through his armor, missing his vital organs by inches. "The throne is protecting him," Yura said, her voice filled with awe. "It considers him its chosen occupant. To remove him by force would require destroying the throne itself." The implications crashed through the chamber like a shockwave. The throne had chosen. Not a mighty warrior, or a brilliant strategist, or an ancient leader. It had chosen a human. A nobody. A being that the entire council had been laughing at just moments before. On the throne, Day's eyes moved rapidly beneath closed lids, dreaming dreams that contained the memories of empires. Day woke in a room he did not recognize. The ceiling above him showed a perfect recreation of a night sky. but with constellations from a dozen different worlds mixed together. His head felt like it had been split open and filled with broken glass. Every thought hurt. Every memory was tangled with information that did not belong to him. He sat up slowly and immediately regretted it. The room spun, but along with his own disorientation, he felt something else. He felt the throne's presence in his mind, vast and ancient and patient. It was not controlling him. It was simply there, like a new sense he had never possessed before. The door opened. Chief Scholar Yura entered, her metallic body moving with an insect-like grace that should have been unsettling, but somehow was not. They found that he understood Quellan body language now. The throne had given him that knowledge. He could see that Yura was fascinated and frightened in equal measure. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I drank an entire library," they managed to say. His voice was hoarse. "How long was I unconscious?" 16 hours. Your brain activity was extraordinary during that time. The throne was integrating with your neural structure, rewriting pathways, expanding capacity. By all rights, you should be dead or insane. Human brains were not designed to interface with technology this advanced. But here I am. They touched his temples. He could feel the changes. His thoughts moved faster now. His memory was perfect, or at least it felt that way. He could recall every moment of the ceremony with crystal clarity. He remembered Lord Kravik's mocking smile. He remembered the laughter. Why did it choose me? He asked. Yura settled onto a resting platform, adjusted for her physiology. That is what everyone wants to know. The Council is in chaos. Emergency sessions have been running continuously since the bonding. Some delegations are calling for your execution. Others insist that you must be tested further. A few are already planning how to manipulate you for their own advantage. Execution? Day's stomach dropped. They want to kill me because the throne chose me. They want to kill you because they are terrified. You're corrected. The throne is the foundation of galactic authority. For 10,000 years, it has been the one thing all races agree on. Its judgment is final. Its authority is absolute. And now it has chosen a human, a species that most of the Council considers primitive and dangerous. We are not dangerous. They protested. You wiped out 90% of your planet's megafauna before you even developed agriculture, Yura said quietly. You split the atom and immediately used it as a weapon. Your first message to the stars was a radar pulse designed to detect incoming missiles. When we made first contact, your militaries went to full alert. You are a young species. Young species are always dangerous because they do not yet understand the consequences of their actions. They had no answer to that. The throne whispered information to him, showing him why the older races feared humanity. They had all been through their dangerous phases, but that was millions of years ago. They had forgotten what it was like to be young and afraid and aggressive. Can you show me what the throne is showing you? Yura asked. I have studied it for 3 centuries, but it has never communicated with me directly. Now it has bonded with you, a being it met only hours ago. I need to understand why. Day closed his eyes and focused on the connection. The throne responded immediately, flooding him with understanding. He saw the 97 previous candidates. He saw their thoughts as they approached. Every single one of them had wanted the throne. They had desired power, authority, the ability to shape the galaxy according to their vision. They had been conquerors, politicians, strategists. They had all been certain they deserved to rule. They all wanted it, they said slowly. Every candidate wanted to sit on the throne. They believed they were worthy. They were confident. They were sure of themselves. And you were not? Yura asked. I knew I was not worthy, they admitted. I approached it knowing I would fail. I touched it because refusing would have insulted the council, not because I thought I deserved it. I was terrified and embarrassed, and certain I was about to be humiliated in front of the entire galaxy. Understanding flashed in Yura's multifaceted eyes. Humility. The throne values humility. It does not want someone who seeks power. It wants someone who understands the burden of power. But I do not know how to rule a galactic civilization, they said desperately. I can barely run my own life. Yesterday, my biggest concern was whether I had filed my expense reports correctly. Now you are telling me I am supposed to govern billions of beings across thousands of worlds? The throne will teach you, Yura said. It is already teaching you. Can you feel it? Day nodded. He could feel information organizing itself in his mind. Laws and precedents. Cultural details about species he had never met. The complex web of trade agreements and defense pacts that held the council together. It was overwhelming, but the throne was pacing the information carefully. It would not let him drown. There is something else you need to know, Yura continued. Lord Kravik has demanded an emergency tribunal. He claims that the bonding was a malfunction, that the throne has been corrupted. He wants it destroyed and you executed as a threat to galactic security. Can he do that? He can try. The tribunal will convene tomorrow. You will have to defend yourself before the full council. And Day, you need to understand something. Most of them do not want you to succeed. Even those who accept the throne's judgment are terrified of what it means. A human ruler changes everything. Day stood up, testing his balance. His body felt different too. Stronger somehow, or perhaps just more coordinated. The throne had made adjustments there as well. Then I will have to convince them. How? You have been awake for 10 minutes. You are going against beings who have ruled for millennia. I have no idea, they admitted. But the throne chose me for a reason. I have to trust that. The tribunal convened in the same vast chamber where the ceremony had taken place. This time, Day was not a nervous observer. He was the center of attention. He stood on a platform in the middle of the room, surrounded by thousands of beings who were judging his right to exist. Lord Kravik spoke first, his voice harsh with anger. This human is a contamination. The throne has been corrupted by his primitive neural patterns. He must be removed before he damages it further. The scans show no corruption, Yura countered. She had positioned herself as Day's defender, much to his relief. The bonding is complete and healthy. The throne has not been damaged. It has chosen. Then it has chosen poorly, shouted a delegate from the Drothan Empire. Humans are violent, aggressive. They cannot be trusted with authority over peaceful species. They felt anger rise in his chest, but the throne whispered caution. He took a breath and spoke clearly. You are right. Humans are violent. We have done terrible things to our own planet and to each other. We have made mistakes that killed millions. But we also learned from those mistakes. We built monuments to our victims so we would never forget. We created laws to limit our own power because we understood how dangerous unlimited power could be. Empty words, Kravik hissed. You speak of learning, but you have not lived long enough to prove it. The youngest member of this council has existed for 20,000 years. You have lived barely 3 decades. Exactly, they replied. I remember what it is like to be young, to be uncertain, to make mistakes and have to fix them. When did any of you last doubt yourselves? When did you last question whether you were doing the right thing? The chamber was silent. Day pressed forward, letting the throne guide his words. The throne did not choose me because I am strong or wise or experienced. It chose me because I know I am none of those things. It chose me because I am afraid of the responsibility, because I understand that I will make mistakes. Because I will never be certain I am doing the right thing. And that makes you qualified to rule? Another delegate demanded. No, they said simply. But it makes me safe. A ruler who thinks they are always right is dangerous. A ruler who knows they might be wrong will listen to advice, will consider other perspectives, will change course when needed. He looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. I did not ask for this. I do not want absolute power. But the throne has bonded with me, and I will not run from that responsibility. If you want to execute me, then do it. But know that you will be destroying the very foundation of your civilization out of fear and pride. Ambassador Myra of the Quellen Hive stood. She was ancient even by council standards, her metal body marked with the scars of centuries. The human speaks truth. The throne's covenant has sustained us for 10,000 years. We do not abandon it because we dislike its choice. We adapt, we learn, or we admit that our entire civilization was built on lies. The vote was called. It was not unanimous, but it was enough. Day would live. He would be given a chance to prove himself. 3 months until his formal coronation. 3 months to learn how to rule a galaxy. As the delegates filed out, Day sat down heavily on his platform. His legs were shaking. Yura approached with what might have been a smile. You did well, she said. But that was the easy part. Now comes the actual work. Day laughed weakly. That was the easy part? You convinced them not to kill you immediately. Now you have to convince them you deserve to live long term. Welcome to galactic politics, human. Try not to start any wars in your first week. The royal chambers were too large for one person. Day walked through rooms designed for beings 3 times his size, past windows that showed views of planets he could not name. The throne's knowledge helped, feeding him information about each world as he looked at it. But the sheer scale of everything was overwhelming. He had been living here for 2 weeks now. 2 weeks of constant lessons, briefings, and tests. The council had agreed to give him 3 months before the formal coronation, but they were not making those months easy. Every day brought new challenges designed to prove he was unqualified. Day studied 16 hours a day. He learned the histories of civilizations that had risen and fallen before Earth even existed. He memorized trade agreements involving resources he had never heard of. He practiced speaking in languages that humans could not naturally pronounce, using the throne's translation abilities to bridge the gap. But knowledge was not the same as understanding. He knew facts, but he did not know if he could make good decisions with those facts. He had information, but he lacked wisdom. And worst of all, he could feel himself changing. His thoughts were not entirely his own anymore. The throne was influencing how he saw the world, how he processed information. He was becoming something more than human, and he was terrified of losing himself in the process. A chime sounded at the door. Enter, Day called, and his sister walked in. Hana was 3 years younger than him, a xenobiologist who specialized in studying alien life forms. She had volunteered to join him as his cultural advisor, along with a small team of human specialists. Seeing her was the first time in weeks that Day had felt like himself. You look terrible, Hana said bluntly, hugging him. I feel terrible, Day admitted. I am learning everything and understanding nothing. They gave me a test yesterday on Drothan commercial law. I passed perfectly because the throne fed me all the answers. But I do not actually understand why those laws exist or what they mean to the people they govern. Hannah sat down on a chair that adjusted itself to her size. You have been here 2 weeks. They have had 10,000 years. Cut yourself some slack. I do not have time for slack. In 11 weeks, I will be formally crowned as the ruler of the Galactic Council. If I fail, it will not just embarrass me. It will hurt Earth's standing in the galaxy, we are already seen as primitives. If their primitive ruler fails, it confirms everything they believe about us. So do not fail, Hana said simply. She pulled out a data pad. I have been talking to some of the other diplomats and scholars, the ones who are not actively trying to sabotage you. They told me something interesting about the previous throne occupants. What? They all ruled for exactly one generation by their species standards, about 500 years on average. Then they would voluntarily step down and allow the throne to choose a successor. But here is the thing. By the time they stepped down, they had stopped being whoever they were before. The throne had completely integrated with them. They thought like it, acted like it, felt like it. They were basically just extensions of the throne itself. They felt cold. You are saying I am going to lose myself completely? I am saying that is what happened before. But maybe it does not have to happen to you. You are human. We are stubborn. We hold on to things even when it would be easier to let go. Maybe that is another reason the throne chose you. Maybe it was tired of consuming its occupants. Before Day could respond, Yura entered without announcing herself. She moved with urgency. You have your first judgment case. The council has been deadlocked on a territorial dispute for 15 years. They want you to rule on it. 15 years? Why give it to me now? Because they expect you to fail. The case involves the Vexil and the Drothan Empire. Lord Kravik himself is one of the parties. They are hoping you will rule in a way that proves you are biased or incompetent. Day took a deep breath. Tell me about the case. The dispute involved a system on the border between Vexil and Drothan space. Both species claimed it based on different legal precedents. The Vexil claimed it by right of discovery. The Drothan claimed it by right of development. Both sides had valid arguments. Both sides had been colonizing the system for decades, leading to increasing tensions and occasional violence. Day studied the case for 6 hours straight. The throne provided him with every legal precedent, every treaty clause, every historical example that might apply. The information was overwhelming. He could see arguments for both sides. He could also see that this was a test of his impartiality. If he ruled in favor of the Vexil, who wanted him dead, he would look weak and fearful. If he ruled against them, he would look like he was seeking petty revenge. There is no good answer, he told Hana and Yura. Either way I rule, I will anger a major power and look like I am playing politics. Then maybe you need to find a third option, Hana suggested. Day looked at her. What third option? You are thinking like a council member. Discovery versus development. Old laws and older grudges. But you are human. We are good at finding solutions that no one else sees, because we do not know the proper way to think about things yet. An idea began to form in Day's mind. It was radical. It would anger both sides equally. But maybe that was exactly what was needed. The judgment chamber was packed. The entire council wanted to see how the human would rule on his first case. Lord Kravik sat in the Vexil delegation section, radiating smug confidence. The Drothan representative, a being named Voxus, looked equally certain of victory. Day took his position at the judgment platform. The throne's presence in his mind was strong, but he pushed it back slightly. This decision needed to be his own, not a calculation fed to him by ancient programming. I have reviewed this case carefully, Day began. His voice was amplified across the chamber. Both sides have valid legal arguments. The Vexil discovered the system first. The Drothan developed it first. According to council law, both claims have merit. Kravik leaned forward, waiting for the ruling in his favor. Voxus did the same. Therefore, Day continued, I rule that neither side has exclusive rights to the system. The system will be designated as joint territory, administered equally by both the Vexil and the Drothan. All existing colonies may remain. Future development must be approved by both governments. Any disputes will be arbitrated by a neutral council mediator. Silence filled the chamber. Then both delegations erupted in protests. Kravik was on his feet, his voice harsh with anger. "This is unacceptable. We have legal precedent." "So do the Drothan," they replied calmly. "Your precedents conflict." "Rather. Then choose one over the other and create resentment. I am choosing cooperation. You will share the system, or neither of you will have it." "You cannot force us to cooperate," Voxus declared. "I am not forcing you to do anything," they said. "I am simply explaining the reality. If you cannot share the system peacefully, the Council will place it under quarantine until you can. No colonies, no development, no access for either side. The choice is yours." Yura was making a gesture that they had learned meant approval. Other delegates were murmuring among themselves. The ruling was unexpected, but it was also legal. There was precedent for joint administration in cases of conflicting claims. No one had used it in this situation before, because it required the parties to actually work together. "This is a coward's ruling," Kravik hissed. "You are afraid to make a real decision." "I am making a real decision," they replied. "I am deciding that this conflict has gone on long enough. 15 years of deadlock accomplishes nothing. Either find a way to share or both of you lose. That is my judgment." The formal vote was called. To everyone's surprise, the ruling was upheld. Not because everyone agreed with it, but because enough delegates were tired of the conflict and wanted it resolved by any means necessary. After the session, they retreated to his chambers, exhausted. Hannah found him there an hour later. "You did it," she said. It was not what anyone expected, but it worked. "I made everyone angry equally," they said. "Is that really success?" "Sometimes." "That is exactly what success looks like," Yura said, entering behind Hannah. "You proved that you will not play favorites, that you are willing to make unpopular decisions if they are fair. Lord Kravik wanted you to fail, but you gave him something more frustrating than failure. You gave him a solution he cannot argue against legally." They smiled weakly. "One case down. How many thousand more to go?" "Many," Yura admitted, "but you survived your first test. That is worth celebrating." Late that night, alone in his chambers, they felt the throne's presence more strongly than usual. It was pleased with his judgment, but it was also changing him more with each passing day. His thoughts were faster now. His emotions were more controlled. He was becoming efficient and logical and distant. He forced himself to remember Earth, to remember being uncertain and afraid and human. He could not afford to lose that. The throne had chosen him because he was human, with all the flaws and fears that came with it. If he let those qualities go, he would become just another throne occupant, another extension of an ancient machine. He would have to fight to stay himself. Every single day, 6 months had passed since the bonding. Day had survived his formal coronation, a ceremony that lasted 3 days and involved rituals from hundreds of different cultures. He had made judgments on dozens of cases. He had mediated disputes that had lasted centuries. Slowly, grudgingly, the council was accepting him, but he was changing. They could feel it every day. His thoughts were clearer but colder. His decisions were more logical but less intuitive. The throne's influence was growing stronger, and he had to fight constantly to remember what it felt like to be simply human. Hannah helped when she could, reminding him of Earth, of their childhood, of the person he had been before all this. Then everything changed in a single moment. The alarm sounded at 3 a.m. station time. Day was pulled from sleep by the throne's urgent warning. Something was wrong. Very wrong. He dressed quickly and rushed to the command center, where council security officers were gathered around holographic displays showing data streams he did not fully understand. What happened? He demanded. Distress signal from the Rim territories, the security chief reported. She was a Drothan named Lyra, one of the few officers who had treated Day with respect from the beginning. Multiple systems under attack. The signatures do not match any known weapons. Yura arrived moments later, moving faster than Day had ever seen her move. Bring up the data, she ordered. When the display shifted, she went completely still. No, that is impossible. What is impossible? Day asked. These weapon signatures. I have seen them before, in historical records. These are Vakthu weapons. The name meant nothing to Day, but the throne immediately flooded his mind with information. The Vakthu had been a member species of the Council thousands of years ago. They had been exiled after a rebellion, cast out to the edge of known space. They had been considered extinct for millennia. They are not extinct, Yura said quietly, reading the same data Day was processing. They have been building weapons, preparing, and now they have returned. An emergency council session was called. Within hours, the chamber was filled with frightened and angry delegates. More reports were coming in. 3 systems destroyed completely. Millions dead. The Vakthu fleet was advancing rapidly, and their weapons were unlike anything the Council had seen before. Energy shields that should have blocked attacks simply failed. Armor that should have withstood hits melted like ice. We must respond with overwhelming force, Lord Kravek declared. Send the full Council fleet. Crush them before they can advance further. We should negotiate, Ambassador Mira countered. We do not know what they want. Perhaps this can be resolved peacefully. They want revenge, a Drothan military commander said bluntly. They want to destroy us for exiling them. There is nothing to negotiate. The arguing continued for hours. Day listened to it all, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The throne was feeding him military data, tactical analysis, historical precedents. But none of it told him what to do. This was a choice that required more than information. It required judgment. Finally, he stood. The chamber fell silent. I need time to study this situation, Day said. I need to understand what we are facing before I make any decisions. Give me 48 hours. We do not have 48 hours, Kravik protested. The Vegshu could destroy another dozen systems in that time. Then we will have to hope they do not, Day replied firmly. I will not order military action based on incomplete information. 48 hours. He returned to his chambers and called together every advisor he could trust. Hannah, Yura, Commander Jun-Tae from Earth's military, Mira, and a few others who had proven their loyalty. They gathered around a holographic display showing the Vakthu advance. Tell me everything, Day said. Why were the Vakthu exiled? Yura manipulated the display, bringing up historical records. They opposed the Council's expansion policies 5,000 years ago. The Council was aggressively colonizing new systems, often displacing native species in the process. The Vakthu argued that this was morally wrong. They refused to participate in military actions. So they were exiled for being pacifists? Hannah asked, shocked. Essentially, yes. The Council at that time saw their refusal as treason. The Vakthu were given a choice: participate in the expansion or leave Council space forever. They chose to leave. The assumption was that they would not survive long without Council resources. But they did survive, Day said slowly. And now they are back with weapons powerful enough to challenge the entire Council. Why now? What changed? Perhaps they finally have the strength to seek revenge, Jun-Tae suggested. The commander was in his 50s, a veteran of Earth's various conflicts. He had been skeptical of Day's appointment, but had become a trusted advisor. From a military perspective, their timing is strategic. The Council is divided over your appointment. They are hitting while we are weak. Or Myra said quietly. They are hitting because they see an opportunity for justice. For 5,000 years, the Council has pretended the Vecthu did not exist. We erased them from our histories. We taught our children that they were traitors. But what if they were right? What if our expansion was wrong? The throne suddenly flooded Day's mind with new information. Not tactical data or historical facts, but something else. A pattern it wanted him to see. The Vecthu had not attacked civilian targets primarily. They had targeted military installations and colonial administration centers. They had killed millions, yes, but they had avoided population centers when possible. This was not a war of extinction. This was a war with a purpose. They want to negotiate, they said suddenly. Their attacks are meant to prove they cannot be ignored anymore. They are forcing us to acknowledge them. That is a hell of a negotiating tactic, Jun-Tae muttered. Is it worse than exiling an entire species and leaving them to die? Hannah challenged. Day made his decision. I am going to contact them. I am going to offer peace talks. The room erupted in protests. Jun-Tae was shaking his head. Yura was chittering in alarm. Even Myra looked uncertain. They will kill you, Yura said flatly. They have no reason to trust the Council, and you represent the Council now. Maybe that is why I need to go, they replied. I am not part of the old Council. I did not make the decision to exile them. I am human. We were not even spacefaring when the Vecthu were cast out. I am as much an outsider as they are. You are the throne occupant, Jun-Tae said. If they kill you, the entire Council collapses into chaos. It is too dangerous. Everything about this situation is dangerous, they countered. Going to war is dangerous. Doing nothing is dangerous. At least if I go to them, I am showing that I am willing to take the same risks I would ask others to take. He looked around at his advisors. The throne chose me because I am human. Because I bring a different perspective. Let me use that perspective. Let me try to end this without more deaths. And if they reject your offer? Mira asked. Then at least we will have tried. And if they kill me, maybe the next throne occupant will be someone who learned from my mistake. The Council was horrified when Day announced his plan. Lord Kravik called it suicide. Others called it cowardice, running to the enemy to beg for mercy. But Day stood firm. He would take a small shuttle to the Vecthu fleet. He would go with minimal security. He would offer himself as a hostage during peace negotiations. If I do not return, he told the Council, you can assume talks have failed and respond however you see fit. But give me this chance. Give peace this chance. The vote was close, but it passed. Day would go. Hana insisted on coming with him, along with Jun-Tae and a small security detail. Yura wanted to come, but was needed to manage the Council in Day's absence. The shuttle departed the next morning. As they traveled toward the Vecthu fleet, Day felt the throne's presence in his mind more strongly than ever. It was afraid. Not for itself, but for him. It had bonded with him, changed him, and now it did not want to lose him. I am sorry, Day whispered to the throne. But this is the right thing to do. The Vecthu flagship appeared on their sensors. It was massive, built in a style that was both familiar and alien. Elements of old Council design mixed with technology developed in isolation over thousands of years. The ship could probably destroy their shuttle with a single shot. Day opened a communication channel. This is Day of the Galactic Council. I am the throne occupant. I am here to talk. Please do not shoot. For a long moment, there was no response. Then a voice came through, speaking in a language the throne helped Day understand. You have courage, human. Or you are incredibly foolish. Perhaps both. You may dock. But know that if this is a trick, you will not leave this ship alive. Understood, Day said. No tricks. Just talking. The shuttle was pulled into the Vecthu flagship's docking bay by tractor beams. As the doors opened, Day saw his potential killers for the first time. The Vecthu looked vaguely reptilian, but with features that suggested they might have once been aquatic. They were tall, heavily armored, and armed with weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Their leader stepped forward. She was scarred, ancient, and carried herself with the bearing of someone who had seen and survived horrors. I am War Matron Rin. I lead the Veishu fleet, and I want to know why the Council sent a human to speak with me. Is this meant to be an insult? They met her gaze steadily. No insult. I came because I am the only Council representative who is not part of your exile. I came because I want to understand what happened. And I came because I believe there might be a way to end this without more deaths. Rin studied him for a long moment. Then come. Let us talk. But know that I have waited 5,000 years for this conversation. I will not be satisfied with empty words. The conference room on the Vecthu flagship was stark and functional. No decorations, no comfortable seating, just a table and chairs built for beings who expected to be attacked at any moment. They sat across from War Matron Rin, with Hana and Jun Tae flanking him. Rin had her own advisors, scarred veterans who watched the humans with open suspicion. Tell me your story, Day said simply. I have read the Council's records, but I want to hear your version. What really happened 5,000 years ago? Rin leaned back, her eyes distant with memory. The Council was expanding aggressively. They had discovered faster-than-light travel, and suddenly the galaxy seemed small. They wanted to claim everything before anyone else could. My ancestors were part of the Council then. We believed in cooperation, in peaceful exploration. But the Council's leadership had become obsessed with control. She activated a holographic display showing ancient star maps. This system was inhabited by a pre-industrial species. Primitive by Council standards, but they were intelligent and developing quickly. The Council wanted the system for its resources. The native species was in the way. The Council's plan was to relocate them to a reservation planet. Relocation? Hana asked. That sounds reasonable. It sounds reasonable until you understand what it meant, Rin said bitterly. The natives would be moved from their home world, stripped of their culture, forced to live in an environment they were not adapted to. Half of them would die in the first generation. The Council knew this. They did not care. The resources were more valuable than some primitive lives. And the Vegthu opposed this, Day said. We did more than oppose it. We refused to participate. We sent our ships to protect the native species. We said that if the Council wanted those resources, they would have to go through us first. Rin's expression hardened. The Council gave us an ultimatum. Stand down or be exiled. We stood our ground. So they cast us out. They left you to die, Jun-tae said quietly. They tried to leave us to die, Rin corrected. We survived out of spite. We built new weapons, new technology. We waited for the day when we could make the Council answer for what they did. And when we saw that a human had claimed the throne, we knew the time had come. Why? Day asked. What does my species have to do with this? Because humans are young and violent and aggressive, Rin said bluntly. Just like the Council was 5,000 years ago. We thought your appointment meant the Council was returning to its worst instincts. We thought we needed to strike before you led them into a new age of expansion. Day felt the words like a physical blow. She was not entirely wrong. Humanity did have a violent history. They had done terrible things to each other and to their own planet. You are right about humans being violent, he admitted. But you are wrong about what that means. He stood up and began to pace, gathering his thoughts. Yes, Humans are violent. We have fought wars over resources, over beliefs, over things that seem stupid in hindsight. We split the atom and immediately used it as a weapon. We nearly destroyed ourselves dozens of times. But we also learned from every mistake. They pulled up holographic images from Earth's history. Wars and atrocities. Yes, but also monuments and museums built to remember the victims. Peace treaties and international laws designed to prevent future conflicts. We built the United Nations after our worst war specifically to limit our own capacity for violence. We created the International Criminal Court to hold ourselves accountable. We are not good at peace, but we understand the cost of war better than species who have not fought one in millennia. Hannah spoke up, her voice strong. I am a xenobiologist. My job is to study other species and understand them. And the first thing they teach us in xenobiology is that every species goes through violent phases. It is part of development. Young species are aggressive because they are still figuring out how to survive. But humans are unique in how quickly we learned from our violence. She brought up comparative data showing developmental patterns across species. Most council races took millions of years to move past their violent phases. Humans did it in thousands. We went from tribal warfare to global cooperation in the blink of an eye by galactic standards. Not because we are naturally peaceful, but because we kept making mistakes and learning from them. Rin was listening intently now. You are saying your violence makes you better leaders? No, A said. I am saying our violence makes us understand the consequences of decisions better than species who have not faced those consequences recently. When I make a judgment about military action, I know what war costs. I have studied Earth's history. I have seen what happens when leaders make decisions without understanding the human cost. Jun Tae nodded. I am a military commander. I have fought in wars. And I can tell you that anyone who has actually experienced combat is reluctant to start new wars. It is the people who have never seen battle who are eager to fight. The council species have not fought a real war in thousands of years. They have forgotten what war means. And you have not, Rin said slowly. She stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. The council exiled us for refusing to participate in their violence. Now you tell me that your violence makes you suited to prevent more violence. That is an interesting contradiction. It is not a contradiction, Day replied. It is growth. The Vecthu were right to oppose the council's expansion. You were right to protect that native species. But attacking the council now, killing millions, that is not justice. That is revenge. What is the difference? Rin demanded, turning back to face him. Justice heals wounds. Revenge creates new ones. If you destroy the council, you become what you fought against. You become the aggressive empire imposing your will through violence. For the first time, Rin looked uncertain. Then what do you propose? The council will never apologize for exiling us. They will never admit they were wrong. I will make them apologize, they said firmly. That is why I came here. Not to beg you to stop attacking, but to offer you something real. Return to the council as equals. Full voting rights, full representation. Systems designated as joint settlement zones where any species can live freely. And a formal apology from the council for the exile. You cannot promise that, one of Rin's advisors said. The council will never agree. They will if the alternative is war, they replied. And they will if the throne itself supports it. The throne has the final vote in cases of deadlock. I can make this happen if you are willing to give peace a chance. And why should we trust you? Rin asked. You are the throne occupant. You represent the council. No, they said quietly. I represent something the council has forgotten. I represent the idea that mistakes can be corrected, that victims can receive justice. that young species have wisdom to offer if older species are willing to listen. The throne chose me because I am an outsider. Use that. Trust the outsider to change the system from within. Rin was silent for a long time. Finally, she spoke. I will agree to peace talks, but I have one condition. You must remain on the throne. If you step down, if you are replaced by one of the old council races, this agreement ends. You are the only one we trust. Why? Day asked. You barely know me. Because you came here, Rin said simply. You put yourself at risk to talk to us. That takes either courage or stupidity, and I am choosing to believe it is courage. No previous throne occupant would have done that. They would have sent armies. You sent yourself. The negotiations took 3 days. Hannah proved invaluable, using her xenobiology expertise to demonstrate that Vakthu and council species could coexist peacefully. Chun Tae helped work out security arrangements that would protect both sides during the transition period. And Day mediated every dispute, finding compromises that neither side liked, but both could accept. Finally, they had a proposal. The Compact of New Beginnings. The Vakthu would join the council with full rights. Their weapons would be placed under joint custody, not destroyed, but also not used unilaterally. 3 systems would be designated as joint settlement zones, and the council would formally acknowledge the injustice of the exile and apologize. They returned to the council with the treaty in hand. He knew the vote would be close. Many delegates were furious that he had negotiated with terrorists, as they called the Vakthu. Lord Kravik led the opposition, arguing that accepting the treaty showed weakness. But Day had learned something over the past months. He had learned to use his position, to leverage the throne's authority when necessary. He called for a formal vote and made it clear that he would use the throne's deciding vote if needed. The chamber was packed. Every delegation was present. The debate lasted for hours. Delegates argued about justice and security, about precedent and practicality. Some supported the treaty because they were tired of war. Others opposed it because they could not forgive the Vakthu attacks. Finally, the vote was called. It was split exactly down the middle. In such cases, ancient law gave the throne itself a vote. Day stood, feeling the throne's power flowing through him, and cast his vote. Unity, he said, his voice echoing across the chamber. The crystalline structure of the throne pulsed with light, projecting the word across every screen in the room. The compact passed by a single vote. 5 years later, Day stood in one of the joint settlement zones, watching children from a dozen species play together. Vakthu younglings chased Quallen children through gardens designed to accommodate multiple biologies. A young human boy was trying to teach a Vexil how to play soccer. Despite the Vexil having too many legs for the game, Hannah stood beside him, older now, but still fierce. Mira was there too, having become one of Day's closest advisors. Even Commander Jun Tae had stayed, helping to train a new generation of security forces who understood that their job was to protect peace, not prepare for war. Do you ever regret it? Hannah asked quietly. You can never fully return to Earth. The throne has changed you too much. Day considered the question. He was different now. That was true. His thoughts were faster, his emotions more controlled. He could feel the pulse of 1,000 worlds in his consciousness. He was no longer entirely human, but he was not entirely the throne either. He had fought to keep his humanity, his doubts, his capacity to question himself. They put me here as a joke, he said finally. Lord Kravik thought it would be funny to see a human fail. But jokes have a way of revealing truth. They thought humans were too primitive to lead. Maybe that was exactly why we could. Myra made a chittering sound of amusement. The galaxy did not need more warriors or schemers. It needed someone who understood what it meant to be uncertain, to be afraid, to make mistakes and try again. Humanity, fuck yeah, Juntae said, using the old Earth phrase that had become popular across the galaxy. Not because we are perfect, but because we are perfectly aware we are not. Day smiled. In the distance, the throne's spire gleamed in the setting sun, a human heart beating at the center of a galactic civilization. No longer as a joke, but as its unlikely salvation. He had changed the Council, yes, but the Council had also changed him. He was no longer fully human, but he was also no longer just a machine following ancient programming. He was something new, something that had never existed before. A bridge between the old and the young, the established and the emerging, the certain and the doubtful. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what the galaxy needed.